Oh, hello, beautiful people. This is Lori. Welcome back in another YouTube video. Today we are training upper, shoulders, and back focused. So I'm going to run you through everything. But first of all, I'd like to say that I'm extremely excited about training upper because you guys know that I have recently been injured. I tore my biceps and I'm still currently recovering from it. So this is the first block that I have where I'm training upper again, and this is week 4 with this training block. So I got injured in November, so approximately three and a half months ago. I did 6 weeks of lower body training only, and after that I slowly started to reincorporate some upper body exercises. I've obviously done all the rehab first, and I'm now back to training upper, but only specific movements. There are still some stuff that I cannot perform, and that's fine. My coach has designed this block based on the exercises that I can still do, and trust me, there are many things I can do. It's plenty, especially with the goal that I have, which is to grow my shoulders. So there are many exercises out there that are going to allow me to do so while remaining pain-free and injury-free. Lucky me, my back has always been one of my strongest muscle group. So to me, it's all about getting back to where I was before the injury, and I must say that I'm not that far from that point. There are many things where I'm now matching my performance again. It's only exercises such as rowing or things that involve any sort of elbow flexion movements where I'm obviously not anywhere close to where I used to be, but that's fine. Anywho, enough talking about me for now, so we are going to jump into it. So first thing first, I'm warming up, and I cannot emphasize the importance of warming up enough. You guys, this is just so important, and this is going to take your training to the next level. So to start with, I'm mobilizing. I'm using my ball that I'm going to roll on any tight spots, such as along my spine, around my scapula, on my chest, on my traps, and around my neck. Actually, I'm usually starting with a foam roller, but in that gym where I'm training at right now, which is One Fitness in Strasbourg in France, they do not have any, and I couldn't be asked to buy myself one, knowing the fact that I am flying back to Australia in a few days, so I just did without. But as a general rule, I would always use a foam roller as well to open my thoracic, to roll against my back, on my lats. So normally I would do that for 5 to 10 minutes, then I would roll with a little ball, and then I would jump into my activation drills that you've just seen. After the mobility and activation, this is when I start with my warm-up rounds. For my warm-up rounds, I've got 3 exercises that I'm going to perform back to back with no rest. So I've got a seated lat raise, I've got a chest supported rear delt fly, and I've got some lat pull down. 20 reps each time, 4 rounds, just to pump some blood in the muscles that I'm about to work on. For my warm-up rounds, the goal is not for me to reach the muscular failure. I would say that I am anywhere between 6 and 8 out of 10, so I'm still chasing some sort of intensity, but I'm not trying to burn myself, especially for the lat pull down. As you can see, I'm going extremely light on these ones. It's only been a couple of weeks that I have started reincorporate them in my warm-up rounds again. Before that, I would do some pullovers. So even though it's really light, for me it feels great to be able to perform some lat pull downs again. When performing these ones, I really need to focus because I do still feel a pull. It's uncomfortable. It's mostly on the way up if I don't control it. I feel like it's about to snap. So I really need to make sure to be careful with this ones, because the goal is definitely not to make the injury worse, but at the same time I have to start reincorporating this kind of movements in order to build my strength back up in the biceps. So a little bit of pain is fine. It's all about finding the balance. And that is me done with the warm-up. So as you can see, it is quite long. I would say the whole warm-up, including the mobility, the activation and the warm-up rounds, takes around half an hour. First exercise for today's session, I've got some laying cable lateral raise. This is one of my all-time favorite exercise, and that's probably the exercise that allowed me to grow my shoulders, because I'm extremely traps dominant, which means that it's often hard for me to isolate my shoulders without having my traps taken over. But thanks to this variation, I can really focus on isolating my shoulders without using my traps. So huge fan of this exercise. If you've never tried it before, give this one a go. I have 3 working sets here with a specific tempo, which is 2 seconds on the way down and a pause at the top. The rep range that I've got here is 10 to 15, and I've got 2 minutes to rest between each set. I highly recommend you to use some cuffs to perform this exercise rather than having to hold onto 2D handles. I don't know, for me it just works so much better that way, because I can literally just focus on using my shoulders to perform the exercise and not having to worry about my grip strength or holding onto something. I love to start with this exercise because my shoulders are already fried, and it's allowing me to have them nice and activated for the rest of the session. Alright, moving on to the exercise number 2. We have some single arm cable rear delt fly. 3 working sets here. The rep range is 10 to 15, and a specific tempo here as well, which is 3-1-1-1, and that stands for 3 seconds negative, 1 second pause when the rear delt is fully stretched, and 1 second pause when the rear delt is fully contracted. This is such a basic exercise, but you guys have to know that basics work. As a little tip here, if like me you'll find yourself being in an intermediate level load wise, here is a micro-loading technique that I am using myself and that I teach to all my clients. So the rear delt is a very small muscle, and a rear delt fly is an isolation exercise, which means that if you go from 2.5 kg to 5 kg, it's double the weights. So it is actually a huge jump weight wise, and a technique that you can do in order to progress without going too heavy and ruining your form in your technique is by adding a small plate. So in my case, what I've done, I grabbed a 1 kg plate that I have pinned onto the stack in order to create an intermediate level. Trust me, your body is a very, very smart machine. So even though it's only a small increase weight-wise, your body will recognize that it's heavier and you will get some hypertrophy out of that. As another tip here, whenever you perform any unilateral exercise, always remember to start with your weak side first. You go all out, and then you match your performance with your strong side. And this is how you will correct your muscle imbalance over time. Hope that you're enjoying the funny faces here, but as you can see, I'm not pretending, I'm really going all out. Plus, if I'm being honest, I don't really care. I'm at the gym to train hard and I've got no one to impress. 90 seconds rest here, 3 sets. And then moving on to exercise number 3, which is a seated machine side raise. 3 working sets here as well. The rep range is 10 to 15, and tempo wise I've got 3-1-X2, which stands for 3 seconds on the way down, pause at the bottom, explosive on the way up, and pause at the top. Little tip here, if like me you tend to feel your traps taken over in many lateral variations, think reach out instead of shrugging the traps up. Also, I find that the setup with this machine will have a huge impact on whether you'll feel that exercise in your shoulders or in your traps. So make sure to set up the height of the seat the right way. And often on this kind of machines, there's actually a little drawing that says shoulders should be on that line. So all you'll have to do is to move the seat accordingly in order to have your shoulders on the same line as that drawing. 2 minutes rest here before moving on to the next exercise, but before I do so, quick chat with my gym bestie Ju.
Un mot pour la caméra.
C'est vraiment dégueulasse que la dernière fois ma tête parce qu'à croire que tu l'avais fait. Non mais tu peux arrêter en plus, tu fais comme ça alors on dirait que tu filmes mes narines s'il te plaît, comme ça j'ai pas déjà des assez grosses narines. Mais quelle chieuse bordel. Reste là-bas comme ça on s'habitue déjà à plus se voir.
Oh t'abuses.
Exercise number 4, and in my opinion one of the most underrated exercise for the shoulders. We've got the dumbbell side to rear raise. Not gonna lie, I was a little bit skeptical when I first saw that exercise in my training program, but that was before I gave it a proper go, because let me tell you guys that this is a killer. All you need is a bench that you're going to incline at 30 degrees. I highly recommend you to incline that lower part of the bench as well so you don't slide. Use a very light dumbbell to start with, because you'll be surprised how hard this variation actually is. When performing the right way, you are going to feel this exercise in the rear delts and in your side delts as well. 2 working sets here, 10 to 15 reps. Tempo wise, it's slow and controlled throughout the whole movement, and the risk with this kind of exercise is that if you go too heavy too soon, you won't be able to use the right muscles and you'll have to use some momentum, which is pointless, especially if your goal is hypertrophy. You will feel in the first half of the movement that it's more rear delts, and in that second half of the movement, when coming back up, you will feel it more in your side delts. On top of that, you will also feel it in your core, because you will have to keep your core engaged throughout the whole movement to prevent you from shifting forward or backwards. So overall, it is a great exercise for the rear delts, for the side delts, and for the core. Give this a go and thank me later. Here as well, start with the weak side first, go all out until you reach the failure, and then match your performance with the strong side. As you can see, I'm using my figure 6 straps for this exercise. Not because the dumbbell is too heavy, it was actually a 3 kg dumbbell, so that's very light, but it's because it is a pretty long set and I do not want to worry about my grip. I find that it really allows me to focus on using the right muscle to perform this exercise. I'm actually so glad that I only have 2 working sets here, because I'm not even joking, that is probably one of the hardest exercises I've got in this training session. I had 90 seconds to rest here before jumping in my second and last set. And then moving on to exercise number 5, we have an incline bench Y raise. So I'm a huge fan of this exercise because, once again, it is a cable variation that really allows me to fire my shoulders without having my traps taken over. Not gonna lie, the setup does require a little bit of preparation. You will need both cables and also a bench that you're going to incline at 75 degrees. I highly recommend you to start with no weights first, just to assess the height of the cables and to make adjustments if needed. You will have to find the right setup that works for you, your gym, your equipment, your body. Also, like any other exercise, remember to perform some warm-up sets. As a general rule, for my warm-up sets, I go for half the weights of my working sets and half the reps of my rep range. You can't really see from that angle, but I'm actually chest supported. Like any other cable lateral raise variation, I highly recommend you to use your cuffs here. It makes such a huge difference to not have to worry about holding onto a D handle. And personally, I feel my shoulders way more when I'm using cuffs as opposed to when I'm using a D handle or no handles at all. I've got 2 working sets here with 2 minutes of rest in between each set. The rep range is 10 to 15. Tempo is 1-1-1-1. So 1 second on the way down, 1 second pause at the bottom, 1 second on the way up, 1 second pause at the top. So slow and controlled movement throughout. Same tip here as the seated side raise machine. If you start to feel your traps taken over when performing this exercise, think reaching out and keep your traps low. And then last but not least, so last exercise for today, we have some incline bench pullovers with the rope. This is hands down my favorite cable pullovers variation because, as I mentioned before, I am quite traps dominant, and this is the only variation that allows me to go all out to the failure without having my traps taken over. And this is because you are laying down. All you need for that variation is a bench that you're going to incline at 30 degrees. Once again here, the setup will require a little bit of time and practice. You will have to make adjustments with the height of the rope and with the distance between the bench and the cable. But trust me, once that you have the perfect setup, this is a killer for the lats. I've got 4 working sets here. Rep range is 15 to 20 and the tempo is 4 seconds on the way up, 1 second pause at the top, 1 second on the way down, and 1 second pause at the bottom. For any cable pullover variations, I would always go for a super slow and controlled tempo, at least 3 seconds on the eccentric part of the movement in order to emphasize that stretch in the lats. Then I like to add a pause when the lats are fully stretched, and I also like to pause at the bottom when the lats are fully squeezed, especially if you struggle to feel your lats in your pullovers. This kind of tempo is really going to help you to create that mind-muscle connection and to prevent any other muscles such as the traps and the triceps to take over. Here as well, I like to use my figure 6 straps because this is a pretty long set and I do want my lats to fail before my grip does so. I've got 2 minutes rest in between each set and 4 working sets here, as I mentioned before. Let me tell you that at the end of the set number 4, my lats were falling off. Now, I know what you might be thinking. 4 working sets, 15 to 20 reps, wow, that is a lot of volume. How comes? Well, this is simply because I am still recovering from my biceps injury, which means that there are a lot of exercises for my back that I cannot perform at the moment, such as heavy pull downs or heavy rows. So at the moment, the cable pullovers is the only exercise that I can really bring to the failure without feeling any pain or discomfort. Obviously, in my next training program, I will start to have more variety when it comes to back exercises, such as rows and pull downs and chin-ups and so on, which I'm really excited about. But I just have to be a little bit more patient. I know that these things take time and I will be back to 100% very soon. As you can see, I finished my session with some rounds of posing. Reminder that posing is something that you have to practice all year round, not only when you're prepping, also during your off season. So practice, especially during the off season, so eventually it will become so natural for you that it will be like breathing. And that's it for today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this kind of format with me running you through the whole session. If you did enjoy it, feel free to like and subscribe. That really supports the channel. And if you're interested in following my off-season, my journey, feel free to follow me on Instagram as well, where I'm way more active. Bye, peeps!